We're rolling. Oh, hey there. Ooh.
Welcome, friend.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
You are my guest today on the Foundations podcast, Deidre Sirianni.
Yes.
Is that the best way to pronounce your last name?
Yeah, you did a great job.
Sirianni.
I would say Sirianni.
Sirianni.
Sirianni, you did a good job. You did it right.
I was telling one of my previous guests that he's really good looking.
Yeah.
You're also one of those good looking people. Phone drop.
Not a mic drop, but a phone drop.
Phone drop. Today, we just had a beautiful breakfast, and we have realized that the things to talk about are love.
Yes.
And sometimes we seem to prevent ourselves from love.
Yeah, we do that. We totally do that.
And you know a lot about that, this blockage stuff. So I want to talk to you about that today.
Well, I'm excited. I mean, like, it's so funny because it's so present in my life right now. I feel like everything that I've been personally going through is like, am I opening to love or am I closing to love? And we were talking about how we close our heart because someone said this, or we're judging that, or we're doing this, or whatever. And it's like, there are so many ways us as humans, we run away from love. And we tell ourselves that we're not running away from love, and we make these excuses and these stories and we enroll other people in, but really we're just closing to love. So there's so much to talk about there. Like, I don't even know where to start really, because it's like, where do we start with this, Brad? Like, I don't know.
Well, that's a good question. But you have recently written a book, which I really wish I had read before this podcast. But you said you brought me a copy.
I did bring you a copy. This is it.
Okay, perfect. Turn your light on.
Turn your light on.
Turn your light on to what?
Well, okay, so it's to who you are and who you're meant to be in the world. Number one. So the way I like to think about light, you know, I had a vision, I think it was about 5 years ago, came out of nowhere, and this is how our higher self communicates to us, is through vision. And I had this vision of looking down at the world and starting to turn lights on. And then I looked to the right and to the left of me, and there were other planetary leaders turning people's lights on. And right away in that moment, without fully understanding it, I was like, oh, this is my work right now. My work is to wake people up. So when you think of the light, when the light's off, we can't see clearly. And so there's 4 main stages of turning your light on. Stage 1, I want you to think of yourself for a moment in the middle of the forest, in the middle of the night.
Should I do this right now?
Yeah. Just close your eyes. And imagine being in the middle of the forest in the middle of the night, and you have a flashlight, but it doesn't work. And you're hearing things in the bush, maybe some wild animals. You're alone. It's dark. It's cold. What is your experience of being in the forest in the middle of the night by yourself without a flashlight? What does that feel like?
Well, it feels like it wouldn't have been such a problem if my flashlight, I'm like expecting I'm really irritated that the flashlight doesn't work. Like, I could be a lot more comfortable if I intentionally went out there to be in the dark. But now my light doesn't work, and it's kind of annoying. And I'm just like, and I actually don't know what creatures are around me.
Yeah. So when our light is off, it's kind of like being in the forest in the middle of the night without a flashlight by ourselves. What we would typically do is we'd find a tree, we'd have our back to the tree, and we probably wouldn't move because we're living in fear.
Right. We
don't know what's out there. We can't see clearly. And as a result, we stay in one location. So at stage 1 of turning our light on, we all have a light inside of us. The question is it on? And when it's fully off in stage 1, we live in fear. We feel stuck. We feel disconnected from ourselves because we're operating in fear. Our nervous system is, on high alert. And we feel disconnected from the world outside of us because it seems scary and it seems so far away. The next symptom that is really common at stage 1 of having our light turned off is we manifest dis-ease in the body. Dis-ease is like one of the truest signs that we are not honoring our soul. We're not honoring our path. Our light is off because we are numbing parts of what our soul is telling us. So,
and that could be anything like disease, actual disease, or just discomfort, or just like not feeling whole, all sorts of stuff.
Chronic pain, disconnection, depression, anxiety, all of those things, not knowing what our purpose is, not making change, staying in the same place, being stagnant. Those are all signs of stage 1. And so for me, 7 years ago, I, in my world, I was doing all these things. I was in a career that I loved with my past business. And from the outside looking in, it looked like I had my light on. It looked like I was super happy. But the truth was, I actually was at stage 1, although from the outside looking in, it looked like my light was on. So the tricky thing about our light being on or off, it's not necessarily based on how other people see us. It's actually based on our own internal knowing and our own experience.
Right.
So
at that stage that you thought your light was on.
I didn't think my light was on.
But you thought other people thought your light was on.
Other people did think my light was on.
Got it.
They came to me for inspiration. They came to me for advice. I was a leader in the community. I was doing all these things. But, 7 years ago, there was a moment where I was standing in my kitchen and I was putting my fingers through my hair, as I always do. And I had this really long hair that went down to my hips. And growing up, it was like my thing that made me the girl of the family because I had 2 older brothers. So it was like my hair was like, the thing. And I realized quickly that something felt off. And so I grabbed my phone, I raced to the bathroom, I put on camera mode, and I start angling at the back of my head with the mirror, trying to figure out like what's going on here. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a bald spot and it's this big. And I was
like that,
just this big, top of my head, a couple inches, totally bald. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, how did this happen? How do I fix this? I was freaking out. And I was like, clearly the universe is trying to tell me something because it's going after my hair.
Right.
So I go back to my kitchen and I sit down for a moment to ground. And that's when I hear this voice come out of me and say, if you don't listen to your soul, you're going to manifest cancer and die in the next year. And I was like, whoa. And just sitting
like clear as day message.
So clear. It came out of my stomach. Like my solar plexus just came out super strong as though you were telling me, but it was coming out of me. And then I have a flashback to the only other time in my life I had ever heard this voice speak to me. I'm outside. I have friends and family on both sides of me, overlooking the water. I'm wearing my wedding dress. I have pink roses in my hand. I have my friend Marty out front playing the song, singing on the guitar, singing the lyrics. It's beautiful. It's true. I'm walking down the aisle. I am so excited. I'm about to marry the man of my dreams. Moments before saying I do, this same voice says, this just isn't going to work. And I had never heard.
Same source, solar plexus.
Same here, solar plexus came out of me. And I was just like, I can't deal with this right now, number one. Number two, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. I'm going to marry the man of my dreams. Like, where is this coming from? I squash it down, right?
Yeah.
And now, I'm sitting at my kitchen table and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have 4 different types of autoimmune disease that the doctors can't help me with that are genetic. I have chronic pain in my neck and shoulders to the point where my massage therapist actually fired me because she's like, I can't help you anymore. And I was depressed to the point of having a vision of ending my life. And every single time I was around my husband, my entire body would contract. He would always tell me who to be, how to be, what I can say, what I can't say, what I should wear, what I shouldn't wear. And I had this moment that I remembered when I was sitting there of like walking out of the house so excited for this new opportunity in television. And I was practicing my introduction and extra for the segment. And he puts his hand on my shoulder and he looks me in the eyes and he says, don't say anything dumb on TV. I don't want you to look stupid. So I'm sitting there and I'm having this flashback of all the things that are going on with my physical health, my mental health, and then also my relationship. And I'm like, oh my gosh, could it be that this entire time, since I didn't listen to that voice 5 years prior, that my soul has been communicating to me through symptoms of dis-ease, and it's just been getting louder and louder.
Yeah.
So
it's like this path you're learning to follow your intuition.
Yeah.
And you're really learning about how you block the hell out of it. And
Yeah.
I have done that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it comes through voices. It comes through so many different things. And at that point, everyone thought I was the happiest person they knew because I was in a role that I didn't even know I was in. And so in that moment, I changed my life. I was like, this isn't the script. This isn't where I want to be. I get it. I'm listening. I'm here. I'm going to receive this. And I went down the path deeper of studying with shamans, which I've been doing now for about 11 or 12 years.
Yeah.
And I started really having the courage to do the scary things. And within 3 months, I healed myself of 3 of the 4 autoimmune diseases. My hair grew back, hasn't fallen out since. And that was 7 years ago. My chronic pain went away. My depression went away. And then I finally had the courage to leave a mentally and emotionally abusive relationship, start a new business, and completely change my life. And that's what I help people do today. But that's stage 1. It can look shiny from the outside looking in, but only we know how we feel. I was living in fear.
And now you follow your truth.
And now I follow my truth. The truth. And this is one of the things that I teach people now is the language of the soul, because dis-ease is one of the biggest signs that tells us we're not actually on our true path and our light is off. We're not fully seeing things clearly. We're living in fear. So it's not something we can see. We can see someone and assume like, oh, their light's off, but maybe their light's totally on in their life and they feel amazing and they're on path. And then someone else, you might be like, oh, they're totally on purpose, but maybe they're living a lie. And I was successful with my past career, but I knew it wasn't it, right? Yeah. And then there's stage 2 of turning our light on, which is the flickering light stage. And this is where a lot of people tend
glimpses of your path.
Yeah. So you're like ahead of it. He's like, I know where we're going. You're like glimpses. So you're in the forest now in the middle of the night, and your flashlight.
Okay, I'm going there.
Sometimes it works. Sometimes you're like going.
Come on. Yes.
Sometimes you're going and you're like, oh, I can see clearly. You're on momentum. You're on path. You're on purpose. You're excited. You're expanded. You can see clearly. And then something happens. Maybe you're aware of it. Maybe you're not. But suddenly you go back into your old ways of being. You start to go into playing safe, hiding, dimming yourself down, and essentially stopping moving forward, which we could look at as self-sabotage. And some of this is conscious, a lot of it's unconscious, and has
the light's overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah.
Turn that light off again.
Yeah. And we also have initiations, right? We have initiations that sometimes we're like, oh, that's too difficult. I don't want to go there. That can be initiation.
Who am I to walk into the light?
Yes. Who am I? And sometimes it will show up as reflections outside of us of people in our sphere that are like, who are you to do this work? And we're like, oh, who am I? And that can trigger old childhood wounds, belief systems, etc. So at this stage, we're inconsistent. Sometimes we show up, sometimes we don't. And our biggest frustration in stage 2 of turning our light on is we're inconsistent. We haven't built self-trust. We're probably not in the right environments because we have people that are trying to potentially take us off path. And we haven't really found our tribe. We haven't really found our people. And the deeper work that needs to be done here, self-trust, right environment, potentially a coach or guide to help you overcome these initiations so that you show up on the other side stronger and really move forward. So that's the second stage.
Right environment really resonated when you just said
Huge.
that. I've learned so much about that.
Yeah.
Like you need to have that's what actually this podcast, you need to have the conversations, and that's just part of your daily life. You're doing deep work just as a way of your conversational life.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like if you're in the wrong environments, it's like a flower or, this plant right here. If it's in the wrong environment, it doesn't matter how much you water it, how many podcasts you listen to, how many books you read or whatever. If you're actually in the wrong environment, you may never bloom. And so many people are frustrated. They're in the wrong environments. They're not showing up consistently. Maybe their light's off. They have disease. They feel stuck. They're disconnected. And it's because they need to learn the language of the soul. They need some guidance and they need to get out of the environments that are keeping them.
Which is letting go a lot of the time.
Yeah.
It seems to usually be letting go of people usually is a big one.
Yeah. And that's hard sometimes because we're like, well, are we going to find our people? Are we going to be accepted? Are we going to be loved? And then sometimes we have these, dynamics within our family or our systems of, how we grew up that are telling us we have to be a certain way, which prevents us from letting go of some people or having boundaries. And I definitely went through that years ago where I was like, I don't feel understood in the environments that I'm in, but what if there aren't other people like me out there? And so it's important to
That's like one of the thoughts.
Start to get out there. Exactly. Yeah. But there are.
Yeah, I think like in my experience, especially now, it's like when I meet I remember the first time I met a teacher and it was like, whoa, my first teacher. Yeah. But then I was like, that means there's more of them. Yeah. I was like, where are they?
Where are they?
And then my radar went up. Like there's more. If there's one, there's more.
Yeah. Yeah. There's always more. And the teacher appears when you're ready and you're willing and open to receive the guidance. And
sometimes that teacher's already in your peripheral.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, you just wake up to like, oh my God, he's right there.
Totally.
Or she or whatever.
Whoever, right?
Or maybe it's not even a person. Who knows?
Maybe it's a spirit guide. Who knows, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Or a tree. I don't know. I mean, there's so many things. And then there's stage 3 of turning our light on, which the third stage, this is where a lot of people get stuck in a cycle. Because at stage 2, it's like, something's wrong. At stage 1, you're so disconnected from self.
Stage 1, you don't know something. You don't even know anything.
Well, your body knows something's wrong and you might be masking the symptoms.
Okay, then stage 2, you know something's wrong.
Well, you're frustrated. You're frustrated with yourself because you're like, how come I'm not consistent? How come I'm not getting the results? How come I keep self-sabotaging?
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's stage 3, and this is the bright light stage. So a lot of people get trapped in the bright light stage. And this is also where, so again, if you're in the forest in the middle of the night and you have a bright light, the bright light is great, but there's no direction. It's everywhere.
Like it's too bright.
Not too bright, but the light has no direction. So if I have a light in front of me and it's all around, it's going to give light in all directions to a certain point.
It's not a flashlight.
Yeah.
It's not pointing.
Exactly.
It's just like everything's lit.
So everything's kind of lit. So it's about a meter to your left, a meter in front of you, a meter to all sides. So you see a little bit of everything around you, but there's no direction. So how that translates as far as like the human experience of waking up to who we really are and doing the work that we're here to do in the world is we do a little bit of everything. We have shiny opportunity syndrome, shiny object syndrome. We have so much inspiration. It's all over the place. But at the end of the day, depending on whether you're self-employed or you work for other people.
I think I'm in stage 3.
You're building other people's dreams usually.
Yeah.
Or doing things that you're good at.
Now that you're saying it.
Yeah, let's talk about it, Brad.
Now that you're saying it, because I still don't have that deep divine clarity of like, I know exactly who I'm becoming. Yeah. But I might be, I don't have to hear stage 4 soon.
Yeah.
But it might be like somewhere between those stages.
Yeah.
But I'm still in I know I'm still trying things.
Yes. Okay.
Right. So it's interesting. I'm exploring still because of an unknowing and lack of clarity, I would suppose.
Yeah. And so stage 3, what typically the symptoms are is you have a lot of energy, you have a lot of light, it's going everywhere. But at the end of the day, the one thing that you're really here to do is on the back burner, or it's not getting the attention it needs. And that usually, as you mentioned, has to do with clarity. It has to do with learning how to quiet the noise and let go of the things that aren't it. We had a conversation about this earlier. It's like sometimes in relationships, I was sharing a little bit about myself and, my experiences. Sometimes as humans, we date and we're with people or we're in environments because we're like, oh, this is pretty good, but it might not quite be it.
Yeah.
And so in life, in business, in our purpose, and that we can have all these distractions that are pretty good, and they give us potentially external validation. We're good at them. We have skills in that department. We get energy from it. But on a soul level, our soul is like, this isn't quite it. But we do it to distract ourselves sometimes from really going all in on the one thing that we know that we need to do and focusing. But we have to learn how to quiet the noise, how to know what's not it, because we tell ourselves, and we say we, as in I've seen this so much in community of like, oh, I don't know what it is. We always know what it is. And so quieting the noise, and this stage, the being overcommitted, being, overwhelmed potentially or all over the place, that's actually a very high level way of sabotaging our dharma, our purpose, our legacy. And so at this stage,
so you're in this stage, you're pretending not to know, essentially.
Yeah. This is a high level self-sabotage. Yeah.
Yeah. You're pretending not to know, which is opening you to too many things, which is shiny objects.
Yeah.
And now I'm overwhelmed because I'm pretending not to know that I just have to focus on my mastery of who I'm meant to be.
Yeah. And part of this can be like, we go through all of these stages. So we go through all of these stages in love, with our purpose. There's just so many different categories of this. But if we're talking about really waking up to who we are and the work that we're here to do in the world, it's a stage that we all go through, and we have a little bit of like, oh, is this it? Is that it? And it's how long are we in the stage for? Because you don't need to be in the stage for very long, because your purpose or your true North Star is always showing to you. Like, it's always there.
And some people move through all the stages in an instant.
They do.
That's not the more common one, I don't think.
It's not the more common one, but some people will stay stuck in stage one for, potentially up until their 40s or 50s, or stage two until they're, in their 60s. You know what I mean?
Boom, stage four.
It's like you want to move through. So stage 4, which is the stage that we all want to be in, it's the legacy building mode. It's the clarity every day on what you are doing. Everyone knows what your purpose is and what you're building because it's so obvious. You wake up every day, you know what you're doing, you're on path, you're on purpose. The right people continue to show up for you to help you build that. And you're consistently leveling up and growing your legacy, your team, your vision, your dreams. And you have enough discipline and self-trust, and not only self-trust, but we talked about this earlier, like trusting in the divine power of like giving over your own trust to the divine, that you are being guided and it's okay to let go of what doesn't serve you because you're always being guided. And
I'm going to speak to that right now, because that's, you were asking me at breakfast what the biggest lesson, what am I learning? Like, I'm going through an experience right now, and what am I learning?
Yeah.
And it's hands down, like, small me doesn't necessarily have all the answers, but like the level of divine trust for the great master creator or creation or whatever it is like so strong in me right now. So I'm able to, and with that support and that, I can weather so much. Just like, it's, it's just such a divine practice. I don't even know. I didn't even realize I was practicing it until until this event comes in my life, and I'm like, oh, I have the tools. I didn't even realize I had the tool of divine trust. Right? There's trust in me, the soul path, and Brad, but then there's that trust in the much greater architecture. And I'm just feeling that in a strong level.
I love that. And it's so cool too, because the trust, the self-trust, we need to develop our own self-trust and go through those other stages and discipline and understanding what our gifts are. And we have to go through all of those, some of them on an ego level, some of them on a soul level, so that we can give it over to something greater and then go all in on that. And that's the stage 4, and usually from stage 3 to stage 4, that's where a deeper level of spirituality, guidance, illumination, co-creation, being with people who are at a higher level of leadership and showing up in the world so that they can help illuminate you and raise you to a higher level of your own consciousness and leadership, so that you are on path, who can give you a guide and also be like, hey, Brad, there's when we go and climb this mountain, you're going to need to pack this, this, and this in your backpack, and you're going to need these things so that, and the training ground for it, because it's like climbing Mount Everest and never training. It's like, you're going to need to have a guide who's been there probably many times. They're going to tell you how to pack, how to train, what to expect, what's going to happen on a mental, emotional level, all the things. And it's the same thing with the spiritual path and going to that fourth stage and anchoring in it. I mean, so those are the 4 stages. And that's what I talk about in the book and what I teach.
Do those 4 stages like break down? Is that like how you've broken down the book?
The 4 stages. So in the book, there's a quiz that you can go and take, and it will tell you which stage you're at and give you a bit of a training specifically for you and where you're at. The book essentially is a system that I've been developing for, I would say, about 10 years of doing this work. Very simplified version of all of the hours and times I've spent in all of this around understanding the language of the soul. We talk a little bit about trauma and imprints and how trauma is actually our access point to our greatest gifts through accelerating and moving forward, not from staying in the past.
Yeah.
We talk about clearing karma on an energetic soul level. We talk about purpose, impact. Like there's a formula that I've developed. What is
karma to you?
Karma is anything that we are holding on to energetically. So in our beingness.
That is contracting, or is it just anything we're holding?
So it's anything that I feel like this is a good question. I feel like it's anything that we are holding or is an energetic imprint within our beingness. So for example, with finances, because I help people with, growing their business and stuff similar to you in a different way, right?
Yeah.
It's like if I have resistance around accepting money, or whatever that is, I know that I have some karma to clear in that department because I haven't completed a feeling, a thought, an experience from the past. And until I clear that on an energetic and also physical space, I won't be able to necessarily create something new. So karma, anything we hold on to, we need to clear so that we can be in a space of expansion and calling in.
Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, so your light is on now. I know you are writing another book, and I like this one because the same reason I started Foundations was actually instructed from an ayahuasca ceremony. I was instructed to start a Foundations, and the whole thing centers on love. Right? And my original message that was received, I was in ayahuasca ceremony. I said, tell me what to do. Like, tell me how I can best serve humanity and the earth. And the original instruction was received immediately in my first ayahuasca session. Is I teach people how to fall in love with this place.
Oh, I love that.
That was the original mission statement for Foundations. Teach people to fall in love with this place. And the first people is myself.
Yeah.
So I'm the first student of myself.
Yeah.
And I was in that first year, I'm like, this business is to teach myself to do the mission. So your next book is Love, and is that? Or tell me about this. What are you've become an author now, and it seems like you're going to be a continuous author.
Yeah.
Tell me about Love.
So I have another book that's going to come out probably in the next year. It's quite a process, and this book that I've been working on has probably been the most vulnerable work I've ever done. And the reason it's the most vulnerable work that I'm going to be putting out there more is because it's all based on my personal experiences of struggling to find love within myself and
love for yourself.
Love for myself. However, the book is really about love in general. So it's like Deepak Chopra meets Eat, Pray, Love is the next book. I'm not even going to share the title because it's like it's not ready to be birthed yet, but it will be, and I'll share when it is. But it's my experience of all the stages of love that I've experienced in my life, from being, grade 4, my first boyfriend. This is so crazy. Let me tell you about my first boyfriend. Actually,
in grade 4.
In grade 4. So I bumped into him recently at my friend's
wedding.
wedding.
My first girlfriend was in grade 4 too. Yeah.
So basically I had braces. And this is before people had braces in my school, and it was grade 4, so it's like a little young for braces, but I had them. I was a little geeky. And this guy, he was new to our school. His name was Blake. Super cute guy. All the girls had a crush on him. And I didn't think he had a crush on me. I was just another girl in the class. And then Valentine's Day comes around and he shows up with a box of chocolates and this gorilla teddy bear, this white gorilla teddy bear. I think I still have it somewhere in storage. And he asked me if I want to be his girlfriend. And I'm like, yes, done deal, right? Like grade 4, you show up with chocolates and a gorilla bear, like game over, right? And
super game over.
It was so cute. Like his dad would pick us up and bring us on dates. We had a mutual fort between our houses because we lived a couple blocks from each other, and we would leave like love notes to each other. It was such a cute story and a cute relationship. And I remember the day that he showed up and brought a box of chocolates and asked me to be his girlfriend. All of the girls in class immediately hated me, and they went to the washroom and they cried. And suddenly at that point in my life, there was a belief system that I'm aware of now, and I've moved through it and I've shifted it, where it's like, it's not safe to fully be chosen, and it's not safe to be with a man that a lot of other women desire.
Ooh.
Yeah, big, right? Like really
imprinted right at the start.
Grade 4.
Grade 4.
And it was like such a cute like love story that we had. We were together for 4 years, and we
really from grade 4 to 8.
Yeah, grade 4 to 8. We broke up in high school. I remember he tried to French kiss me, and I don't think it went well, or I was really uncomfortable. I was super scared, right? And then he was embarrassed because I didn't kiss him, and then he made fun of me, and then we broke up. We were still friends. Like he ended up getting together with a really good friend of mine years later. But there were so many belief systems that were imprinted from that first experience on love. So in the book, the next book, I talk about these different stages of love, these different experiences.
You like stages.
I love stages.
You love stages.
Because I feel like, the world is your stage, so, play. But also there are different stages. And, I forget who I saw recently talking about this, but it doesn't matter how much ayahuasca you do. It doesn't matter how many psychedelics you do. It doesn't matter how much this or that you do or how many books you read. You cannot go from stage 1 to stage 50 in a moment and stay there. You have to actually do the groundwork within yourself to create a change. And sometimes that can happen really fast for people, but there are stages. It's like climbing a mountain. You have to climb the mountain. You can go on you can take a plane up the mountain, but you took a plane, you didn't do the work. So you're not above anyone else. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
So with love, it's the same thing. In this book, I talk about the different experiences of love that I had, like Eat, Pray, Love meets Deepak Chopra. So there's a higher wisdom, but also I wrote the book like a diary. Like I was fully in these experiences where I swear at many points in the book as I was writing it, I was like, is like the universe playing a game on me right now? Because I'm really thinking that this is it, but this is really what's going on.
Yeah.
And all of the lessons, but going back to that first love in grade 4, what's going to get you in a relationship in grade 4, and it's going to make a relationship last for 4 years, is definitely not going to make that happen when you're in your 30s.
The chocolate's not going to work anymore?
No. Oh. Hate to break it to you, Brad. But, going back to the belief system around it's not safe to be fully chosen, and it's not safe to be with a man who's, all the women want, is because there were a lot of things that happened in those 4 years where I had girls not like me, they bullied me, like all of these things happened. And so I formed these belief systems. And then in my adulthood, I definitely played safe in relationships. I didn't fully allow men to choose me, even though I was, with someone for 8 years, because I didn't fully choose myself because I didn't feel worthy. And I had these dynamics with men where when what I really wanted would show up, I would run away. And I had an experience in Bali. I won't say who or what happened specifically, but I was in Bali, and this is after I got out of a relationship a year and a half relationship that was very traumatic for me. The man didn't choose me because I didn't fully choose myself. And when I was fully choosing myself, there was conflict, so it couldn't work. And essentially I was, I was single for 2 years on purpose because I was like, I gotta do some inner work because I'm not attracting what I really want. Like,
it's a good period, 2 years.
It was great. It was amazing, right? And I was in Bali and I met this man who I already had a crush on. And we had similar values and all the things, and we were co-facilitating a retreat together. And at the end of the retreat, he showed a lot of interest in me, and I was giggling, we were laughing, and he basically was like, you manifested this, you manifested me. And I was like, whoa, like, I don't know if I manifested you, but if you've been to Bali, things manifest really quickly there. So it's actually true, right? There's some magic going on in the universe. And I was giggling. I was having the best time with him. And he's like, oh, like, let's go on some adventures together. The retreat was done. And I was having the best time. And I was like, this guy is exactly the type of guy that I would want to be with. And I had done a lot of work on myself. I felt really clean and clear. And then suddenly I was like, I have to go. And he looks at me and he's like, what do you mean you have to go? I was like, I have work to do. And he's like, Dee, I thought you had the week off work because we just ran a retreat and da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, yeah, I forgot about something. I have to go. So I grabbed my bag, put my laptop in my bag or my books in my bag. I zip it up. I put it on my back and I basically exit this space as soon as possible. I'm at the sound healing. I'm at Pyramids of Chi in Bali, and I'm exiting the space as fast as possible. And the guy's confused.
Which is strange. You're just like, what's all this? Why would you have to exit here so quickly?
Yeah, and some people might be like, oh, your intuition was telling you to get out of there. Maybe something was off, right? And these are stories that I told myself. So and this is interesting when it comes to love and relationships and triggers. Sometimes we'll tell ourselves a story, and we talked about this a little bit at the beginning of our conversation, was we'll tell ourselves a story that we're not running away from love or we're not closing to love, whereas in reality we are, and we're telling ourselves a story that it's our intuition, the guy or the girl wasn't right, or whatever. And that's our ego trying to justify us stepping away from potential love, potential exposure of our true identity, potentially manifesting and creating what we want, right?
What's coming up for me too is the ego would do that because as you do rise into the light and as you do awaken, the ego does go.
It goes big.
It goes big. It's still around, but it's just like
sneaky.
Yeah, and as you rise into stage 4, which is like love and beyond, the ego doesn't have the same place as it once does. It would do things to try and it's still working its magic in the lower stages.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, or spiritual identities and all these things come up.
Yeah.
But that's what's resonating right now.
I love it. And so I got out of this place super quick, and he's like, hey, okay, like if you have to do work, that's fine. He's like, but let's meet up later. Let's go for dinner. Let's go on an adventure. Let's go for massages. Like the guy was really showing up, and he really liked me.
Did you ever see him again?
I'll tell you more about that later. And so I get on my scooter and I start scootering as fast as I can. Like the scooter's going fast. I'm going like full speed, and I'm having a bit of an anxiety attack. Like I feel unsafe. My heart is racing. I felt like I had to get out of there. It felt like unsafe, so unsafe. And I'm going as fast as I can. Probably about 20 minutes into it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm driving out of the city that I'm in. What am I doing? And I was like, I pull over. I'm sitting on the side of the road. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I running away from?
You just realize right then and there, I'm running.
I was running. I was going on my scooter.
This is all subconscious. Like you're just not consciously aware that you're like, I've got to do this. I'm following, but then you're like, I'm running.
I was running. I was running away from a man who had the same values as me, a man that I had a crush on, a guy that I liked, who was showing interest in me. And because I realized on the side of the road in Bali, I was like, wow, I thought I had healed stuff from my past relationship. Because the relationship before that, there was betrayals, there was stuff there, and just reaffirmed my old belief systems. It's not safe to be fully chosen, and it's not safe to be with a man that a lot of other women want, which was the relationship I was in before that, before the 2 years of being single. And this guy, a lot of women desire him. He's amazing, all these things. And I'm running away. So I'm on the side of the road and I'm having this realization. I'm like, oh my gosh, how many amazing men have I ran away from? Not physically. Like that was probably the first time I physically was like, I didn't run, but I was like moving fast. And the guy's like,
you were on a scooter, right? Yeah. It would have been funnier if you were literally running.
Right? So what ended up happening with him and I mean, there's not a huge story there. I mean, there is a story. Maybe that's for another podcast.
I think
episode.
the point you're making is you noticed you're running away from love.
I was running away. I was running away from exactly what I wanted.
Divine union, potentially.
Potentially.
And you're doing it because of past
stuff.
Bullshit.
Yeah, and that might have started in grade 4 with the, you know what I'm saying?
You're painting a good picture of
that. Yeah, and so I in that moment I had this realization. I was like, oh my gosh. And so this man and we didn't really connect too much after that. There was a bit of a situation where we didn't really connect too much, and I didn't really feel good about it, but I literally ran away from the guy, so I understand. And years later, I actually called him because I wanted to have a conversation with him, because I just wanted to clear the air about kind of what happened with him and I, because there was some gaps in communications and I wasn't ready. I hadn't embodied the work yet. I had done a lot of the work, but there was still fear. It felt like intuition because it was so strong, but I knew it wasn't intuition. It was deeply ingrained belief systems around this isn't safe. And I called him a couple of years later and he's like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for calling me. He's like, what really happened for me was I really liked you and you triggered stuff in me. And then I didn't know how to communicate, so I ghosted. So we both kind of ran from each other. So the way I showed up triggered stuff in him that made him feel vulnerable, and then he didn't feel safe based on past experiences, etc. And we've had this really great conversation. He's like, I really liked you, and I got really scared about this and this and this. And I was like, wow. And in the experience, I could have told myself, oh, it's my intuition. It's this, it's that. It's like, no, the truth is I was scared of love. I was scared of receiving what I wanted. And I didn't believe it was safe.
It's so full. Yeah. It's a lot. You're learning to hold it all. Like I talk about opening the heart because there's a lot to hold, light.
It is. And
look at the big light beam that beams down on us. Just this mammoth ball of light. Yeah. Just burning down and holding everything. Yeah. Transforming everything.
Yeah. And when we're fully in our heart and we're open, we're also open to be potentially hurt, to be heartbroken.
That's the risk.
To be exposed. And so, you and I were talking earlier about essentially, opening up to love, but also being okay with whatever happens. And I think the surrendering to what is so powerful. And also knowing that I remember about a year ago, I was seeing someone, and this is someone different, right? This is a different timeline and all of that. And the relationship didn't work out. I was traveling. I was super in love with this man, but there were certain pieces that didn't work. He couldn't travel for work. I travel and live in different places, all the things. And so it didn't end up working. And I was really upset about it because my heart was super open to him. And I felt like there was definitely a break in the heart because of it. And I remember having this feeling around, did I mess up? Could I have messed up something that was meant for me? Right? Because I have awareness. A lot has shifted since that experience that I shared with you about Bali. And so about a year or a bit ago when I had that experience, I was like, oh my gosh, what if I'm messing up what's for me? And the lesson that I got from that relationship, and that I think is really important to bring forward to anyone, whether it's your purpose, whether it's love, whether it's whatever, it's like, you actually can't mess this up. I know I ran away from a man.
That's beautiful.
Right? I ran away from a man years ago, but you can't mess up what's for you. There's initiations, there's experiences, there's people, all of that. But the universe will continue to circulate opportunities for you to have what you want when it comes to love, when it comes to purpose, when it comes to with who you are. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
100%.
Yeah. You can't mess up what's for you. And sometimes it's messy and we're in these experiences and it's like, oh my gosh, my heart feels ripped out of my chest, or oh my gosh, I ran away from what I wanted, or whatever the story is. And it's like, it's okay. It's part of the process.
You can't mess up what's for you.
You can't, because it will always come back around. The actual person will come back around if they're for you. But the experience of what is for you. And we can't get in the way of God's plan. Like, one of my biggest areas of work, there's 2 things I've been working on this in the last year. Surrendering to God has been everything. Right?
Yeah. Oh.
Surrendering to God and being like, okay, he obviously has, or, has a bigger plan than anything that I can imagine in my mind or my brain or what I want or how I want to control things. And then the second thing is accepting myself.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest pains that we cause ourselves in our own human evolution of waking up to who we are, turning our light on, or opening to love, and finally meeting or co-creating with that divine partner, or whatever that looks like, is we're not accepting ourselves. And, I'm excited to talk more about relationships and love, because it's been such a vulnerable part of my life that I've struggled with. And I'm like, oh, I actually kind of get it now. And I'm like, oh, I'm seeing it all clearly. But it's accepting myself. Like, I have to accept that I'm going to live all over the world. I know that. I have to accept that. I might want to just be like in one location, but I have to accept my true path. We all have to accept our true path and our true nature, and what works for us and what doesn't work for us. Once we get that out of the way, love becomes a lot easier. Relationships become a lot easier. Our evolution, who we are, community, everything. So we have to accept ourselves. And so for me, the more I accept myself, the clearer the path becomes, the clearer the man that's coming in becomes, because I'm not lying to myself and pretending that I'm cool with things that I'm not cool with, or that I'm this when I'm not. And when we can just see ourselves clearly and accept our pain, accept our joy, when we accept our joy, we invite more joy, and we accept our pain, we actually understand what doesn't necessarily work, the more fun life gets.
If you had to put a title on this episode of the podcast, what did we just say in summary? in
A title?
Yeah. Right? Some title with Deidre.
Opening to self.
Opening to self.
Like, that's what it is. It's an opening to self.
Okay, well, when I rewatch this podcast, once it's all edited and good to go, we'll see if that's really what sticks.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what sticks for you.
Yeah, I'll see what sticks to it. It could be that. We'll see.
Opening to love.
Opening to love.
Portal of the heart.
Man, there's so many. You're good at this.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know your stuff.
I mean,
so we've had an amazing discussion here. Thank you for sharing all your wisdom.
Thanks for having me. It's been awesome.
I've how long have I known you now?
About 4 years.
Right. And I've watched your evolution, and I've watched you change your approach. You've kind of, like anything, like a stock trending in a direction. You've changed your approach. You've coached people in business. You've coached people in trauma. If somebody was to get a hold of you today, that you want your ideal client, the person that you would want to get a hold of you, why does someone come to see you now?
People come to see me. I work with visionaries, creatives, and leaders, and I work with people who know that they're here to change the planet in some way through their message, their gifts, their work, their beingness.
Yeah.
And what I help them do is I help them elevate to higher levels of consciousness so that there is no confusion. It's just clarity, power, activation, acceleration. And with people who are unwilling to compromise when it comes to who they are, what they're doing in the world, and also when it comes to matters of the heart. Those are the people I serve, and I support them with whatever they need based on where they're at and what I see in them and what their soul's telling me.
All right. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
So in the links below, there'll be a link to your book if anyone wants to purchase it. And I'm going to read it and maybe I'll do a review on it.
Well, this is for you.
Yes.
This is for you, Brad.
I know.
So.
I'm going to read the hell out of it. And then maybe we can put a link to if anyone does want to work with you.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You're in the first 10 guests.
Oh, wow.
Right? At this point, it hasn't even been launched. So
wow.
You're in the first 10 guests.
It was meant to be.
Yeah. Do you want a hug?
Obviously.
Oh, yeah.
No, I don't. I don't want a hug from you. Sorry, I don't feel comfortable with a hug right now. My heart
I'm in process.
My heart is closed. I can't hug right now.
Yeah.
I'm processing. I love it. Yeah. Thank you. I was born ready. So the answer is yes. The answer is yes. It's always yes.